Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to all of you from wherever you're joining us across the world. My name is Sitembile Mwamakamba. I'm the Director of Policy Research and Analysis at the Food, Agriculture and Natural Resources Policy Analysis Network, FANAPAN. I would like to welcome you to the launch of the Accelerating the Impact of CGIAR Climate Research for Africa, AICCRA initiative. This is a 4-day event series. Today is the official launch event where we'll witness the signing ceremony. This will be followed by 3 days of dialogue sessions that will focus its discussions on the 3 components of the project. AICCRA, not to be confused for AICCRA, is a new initiative that will enhance access to climate information services and validate climate-smart agriculture technologies in Africa. The initiative is supported by a grant from the International Development Association of the World Bank and will support research and capacity building activities by the CGIAR and its partners. Most of us will be familiar with the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Today, the launch of the AICCRA initiative is a demonstration of the importance of partnerships. Partners' participation will be key in AICCRA to make sure that the program really responds to local and regional needs. So the CGIAR will not be going alone in this initiative. Please note that this event provides French live interpretation. To access the interpretation, you may click the link available on the C Events platform session page. Select your preferred language and make sure to mute the original video and only listen through the interratio page. Should you be asked for a code, please enter AICCRA-Day1. To begin our event, I would like to invite our first speaker, Eugen Vogel, who is the Vice President for Sustainable Development at the World Bank. Eugen, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tembi, and a very, very warm welcome to all of you who are listening in to this very important call. This is an important 4-day event for Africa and for agriculture research. So I hope you get a lot out of the conversations over the next few days. Let's be very clear. Food security remains a continuous massive challenge, not only in Africa, but around the world. During the past 15 months into COVID, it became yet again clear how far away we are from a food secure and a nutrition secure world. So we cannot, at this point, slow down in our focus on agriculture research worldwide, and certainly not on the African continent. We have seen the numbers of people who go hungry double in just the last 12 months, and I'm afraid to say there will be another 100 million joining that group by the end of this year, the way things are going. We're looking at 250, 300 million people who will not have access to healthy and nutritious food. Also, nutrition is an issue that we should never forget, right? I looked at the numbers recently. Globally, every second person on the planet has one form of malnutrition or another, either hungry, vitamin deficient, micronutrient deficient, or obese. So huge amounts of work are needed for all of us globally, and certainly on the African continent, to move us forward on this. But this particular focus, this particular event, and this particular grant that we from the World Bank provided is really about helping those who suffer from climate change to better adapt, to build resilience, to reduce their risks, and to, of course, on top where it is possible and feasible, to also help mitigate the impact of climate change. So this is a very, very important piece of research. At the World Bank, we've been supporting agriculture research for more than 50 years. We are one of the largest funders globally to this topic. This is to the CGIAR, the Consultative Group of International Agriculture Research, but also huge amounts to the National Agriculture Research Centers. And as Tembi was saying, this is not only the CGIAR that's working here, this is in partnership with everybody in that space. And we are committed to continue to support this very important agenda. So I look forward to hearing from you what it is that you have to offer, what we are putting on the table. One thing is for sure, we need to accelerate agriculture research, because in this decade, changes are coming so fast and we are reaching tipping points that will have massive implications for food security on the continent and of course in other parts of the world. The floods, the droughts, even the locust crisis that we've been in the last 1.5 years is climate related. So a lot of work is needed in that space, and that is what this grant is all about. And as you heard, Tembi is leading the FundPran, the Food Agriculture the network for policy research. So let me say this as well, let us not forget the policy component. Whatever agriculture research develops and comes up with, whether it's internationally or at the local level, if it's not implemented at the country level, at the local level, it is not good, right? So, and oftentimes it is bad policies that are in between. So a part of important agriculture research is the policy component that the CGIAR can also bring to bear, but also, of course, the local institutions and groups that we're working with. So with that, I really look forward to hearing from you what's happening. Jean-Lucas is going to speak next and will introduce a little bit what the essence and the content and the components of this program are. And I wish you all a successful 4 days, and hopefully all of you stay safe and healthy in these crazy times. With this, over to you, Tembi, or to Juan-Lucas.
Thank you, Eugen, for those remarks and for reminding us to stay safe, even as we deliberate on food issues. Next, I would like to invite Juan-Lucas Restrepo, who is the Director General of the Alliance of Biodiversity International and CIAD at the CGIAR. Juan-Lucas, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Tembi. Greetings to all present. As Jürgen said, this is an important day. I'm very pleased to be here today at the official launch of the project Accelerating the Impact of CGIAR Climate Research for Africa. And climate change is already affecting the livelihoods of millions of farmers around the world. We are experiencing an increase in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, as well as new patterns that are disrupting crop cycles. In many of the poorest regions of the world, including Africa, climate change will not only reduce crop yields and make key areas unsuitable for production altogether, but also increase the incidence of animal diseases, leading to higher food prices, up to 84% according to the World Economic Forum, if we don't do anything. Higher temperatures may also affect the quality of food, reducing the levels of zinc, iron, and protein in some crops, as well as disrupting pollination and natural pest controls, and leading to greater soil degradation and groundwater loss. We have only 9 years, 9 harvest seasons to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Ending all forms of malnutrition and doubling the agricultural productivity and incomes of small-scale producers will need to happen within planetary boundaries, so the rest of the goals are also met. We will not be able to feed the world in a sustainable way if we don't drastically slow the pace of climate change. Science and novel technologies alone will be insufficient to drive the systemic transformation needed to address climate change and nourish the world. They will need to be accompanied by the creation of transdisciplinary networks and the development of an enabling environment that enhances farmers' capacity to use innovations and drive this transformation. This is especially true in Africa, where achieving food security is linked to addressing climate change. Improving the delivery of agroclimatic services and increase climate-smart agriculture, CSA, investment planning is part of the solution. This includes providing adequate decision support tools for tailoring adaptation, interventions, and innovations, creating an enabling environment for regional climate information services and CSA promotion, increasing collaboration among regional institutions, and ensuring adequate dissemination of climate research results across the region. This is a one-of-a-kind project. At the Climate Action Summit held during the UN General Assembly meeting in September 2019, the World Bank committed to increase its support to CGIAR. As a first step, the World Bank pledged $60 million to CCAF's project Accelerating Impact of CGIAR Climate Research in Africa. Funding was channeled through the bank's International Development Association, which has very strict parameters, and I can testify that, to approve grants. The bank team worked very closely with CCAFs and our alliance team to ensure that the project met all the requirements. With the project up and running, we will now work to leverage our one CGIAR capacity to enhance the delivery of CSA and climate information services in Africa. Our goal is to work with our partners to increase climate resilience of agriculture and food systems as a way to improve food security and reduce poverty in the region. Thank you, and back to you, Tembi.
Thank you, Juan, for those remarks, and thank you for reminding us of the urgency of our actions to be able to address the Sustainable Development Goals. We have 9 harvest years, you said, so we need to work fast. At this point, I would like to welcome our next speaker, Simeon, Ellie, who is the Regional Director for Sustainable Development for Africa at the World Bank. Simeon, over to you.
Thank you, Tembi. Thank you also, Juan Lucas and Jorgen for setting the stage. Let me start by emphasizing the urgency of scaling up innovation in Africa's agriculture and food value chains. This relates to one of the most important commitments to galvanize action to address food insecurity in the context of climate change in sub-Saharan Africa. After a period of improved food security, the situation in sub-Saharan Africa has worsened. COVID-19 has dramatically increased the number of people in food crisis. According to the World Food Programme, in November 2020, there were 272 million people acutely food insecure in Africa. The pandemic has compounded multiple existing crises, and it is expected to have protracted impact, with a number of acutely food insecure people continuing to rise in 2021 and 2022. But in reality, COVID-19 has only added to many other forces that were causing food insecurity to rise even before the pandemic. The importance of climate change as a key driver of hunger and food insecurity cannot be overstated. In many parts of Africa, long-term effects such as rising temperatures and changing precipitation levels, as well as short-term effects resulting from extreme weather events, are continuing to the decline, contribute to the decline in the per capita food production growth, and making it difficult to meet the growing food needs of a rapidly increasing population. At the same time, the potential to transform the food system in Africa is immense. The key ingredients are there: land, labor, capital, and know-how. Transformation of the food system will not only drive growth and help safeguard food security, it will create enormous numbers of jobs, including for the youth who are just entering the job markets. Today, I would like to highlight 2 specific areas of action. First, we need to better target public spending on agriculture. And second, we need to direct more resources to investments in climate-smart agriculture, research, and innovations, as alluded to by Jürgen and Juan Lucas earlier. The accelerated impact of CGIAR Climate Research in Africa project, known as ICCRA, being launched here today, financed by the International Development Association through the regional IDA window, will help advance these vital agendas. First, government and their development partners need to reorient, optimize their agriculture spending. Worldwide, governments spend around 600 billion in agriculture subsidies every year. A large portion of these subsidies are distortionary. For example, 10 African governments spend roughly 1.2 billion annually on input subsidies, primarily on fertilizer subsidies, which is inefficient. We need to shift from distortionary agricultural subsidies to climate smart investment at a much faster rate. Second, governments and their development partners need to combine subsidy reform with efforts to ensure greater adoption of proven climate smart technologies. In places where climate smart agriculture is practiced today, farmers are seeing increased food security and resilience. Both of those areas that I just mentioned, the repurposing of subsidies and increased investment in climate smart agriculture, were highlighted by the African leaders at the launch of the Africa Food Security Leadership Dialogue that took place in Kigali in 2019, a process led by African Union, World Bank, and partner UN agencies. The African leaders who gathered in Kigali called for greater investment and actions and adoption at scale of climate smart agriculture technologies in agriculture, science, and agriculture and science, precisely what the ICCRA project sets out to achieve. Making this sort of shift will put Africa's food system on a more sustainable footing while ensuring better use of scarce public funds. This shift will also perform an important catalytic role because we know from experience that public investment in climate smart agriculture unlocks greater volumes of private finance in climate smart agriculture. By increasing the productivity of agriculture and its resilience in the face of climate change, public investment in climate smart agriculture will help to de-risk private investment in the sector, inducing private investors to focus on long-term growth potential. ICCRA will contribute to this important agenda, not only by promoting the development, validation, and dissemination of climate smart technologies, but also by working on innovative financing models co-developed with the public and private sector. With these comments, let me conclude and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Simeon, for your opening statement and for reminding us that ICCRA project is responding directly to the call by the African leaders that was made in 2019 for greater investment and upscaling of climate smart agriculture. At this point, I would like to invite our next speaker, Bruce Campbell, who is the director for the CGIAR research program on climate change, agriculture, and food security. Bruce, over to you.
Thanks, Tembi. So I'm going to give a brief introduction to the project, Accelerating Impacts of CGIAR Climate Research for Africa. We've heard about the challenges from the previous speakers. This one is particularly going to focus on this food production failures in the face of climate change. This is a recent diagram that the team has put together, looking at drought, flood, temperature, climate variability, and actually it's the combinations of all those things coming together, often in the same season. So this is the challenges that we face. So As previous speakers have also mentioned, we're building on the African initiatives, going back to the Malaba Declaration, which set ambitious targets to end hunger. And it actually called for African knowledge institutions and development partners to get behind those ambitions. Simeon has just mentioned the Africa Food Security Leadership Dialogue, and that also goes back to a point Jürgen made, stressing the importance of policies to get CSA moving and taken up by farmers. So we're building it on African initiatives. So what's the rationale? Scaling up ambition. There's 60 million farmers in Africa. Essentially, if we want to achieve the SDGs, we have to reach them all within the next decade. Strengthening institutional and human capacity, and the focus in this project is on innovation capacity, working with national institutions to enhance innovation to achieve this ambition. Generating and validating knowledge. This needs applied research coming together with the basic research. It needs the international research organizations coming together with the national research organizations, and working with farmers so that this knowledge really is useful on the ground. And making sure these technologies get out. We cannot, as scientists, continue to write papers. We have to make sure that our technologies get into the field. So the objectives of Icra: strengthen the capacity of targeted partners and stakeholders, enhance access to climate information services and validated climate smart agricultural technologies, and spur innovation and improve capacity to generate, transfer knowledge, to transfer decision-making tools and validated technologies. Thembi said it wonderfully. If you want to go far, go together. This is a project all about partnerships. So some of our key partners are the National Agricultural Research and Extension Services in the countries where we'll work. Also the National Meteorological Services, so we can really bring climate information services together with the technologies together, as well as the university knowledge partners. We're also working at a regional level, so that means bringing in the agricultural research organizations dealing with the sub-regions and the climate centers. Our theory of change is that the private sector is absolutely crucial to reach scale. And there's many SMEs that we'll be working for, too many that to put on their logos on this diagram. As well as another key part of the theory of change is making sure one's working with farmers. We also work with the Africa-wide institutions and various development partners to ensure reaching scale. And finally, I put the CGIAR logo on this diagram. It's one CGIAR working across all the centers, multiple centers playing a part in this particular project. The geographic focus is the West Africa and the Sahelian drylands, Eastern Africa, dry lowlands and highlands, and the Southern African drylands. We're focusing on 6 countries, which are indicated on this diagram. But our strategy is really through learning alliances and working with the regional partners to achieve spillovers to other countries within Africa. So I've indicated that we're going to be working at these multiple levels. And at each level, we have thematic teams, sub-regional leads. Within countries, we have a lead CGIAR center, but it's bringing in multiple CGIAR centers. And in all cases, working with multiple partners. The 3 components of Icra, the one is about knowledge generation and sharing. And this is about the climate information services and the CSA packages coming together. It's about gender-sensitive plans and priorities and many other things which I can't put on this diagram. The second component is getting the partnerships for delivery. So innovative partnerships, engagement platforms. And going back to one of the points Juan Lucas mentioned, we will be bringing in people from the finance community into the project in order to scale up and bring the finance into the scaling process. And the third part is getting uptake. getting decision support systems into the national advisory systems, getting investment plans happening. The project is based on performance. We'll be assessing performance, so it's a performance-based project. And there's 12 indicators. I just give you some of the indicators as examples. So for knowledge generation and sharing, it's about what are the new climate relevant knowledge products? What are the decision-making tools that are ready for uptake? It's also about some peer-reviewed research papers. Strengthening partnerships for delivery component. It's about establishing or strengthening advisory platforms and advisory hubs. It's about launching or strengthening new partnerships. And the last component, validating Csa Innovations. So one of the indicators is CIS and Csa technologies actually reaching women through customized programs. So we'll be assessing how many of those actually happen amongst our partnership group. Or, and going back to Jürgen's point on policy, what policy and investment decisions have been influenced by the project? My last few slides, just to give you a little flavor of a bit more detail of the kinds of things, and these are only a drop in the ocean examples. So for example, working on solar powered irrigation in Zambia, the plan is, looking at the kinds of pumps available, the value chains where it will work, and piloting with farmers. Thinking about inclusive business models and financing solutions for the private sector partners. How do we get it out there through incubators, accelerator programs, internship programs? And ultimately, having multi-stakeholder scaling dialogues led by farmers and bringing this all together. So that's just one example from Zambia. In Ethiopia, we plan to work with the Ethiopian Digital Agri-Climate Advisory Platform, which we've been working with for the past few years, and really bringing it to the scale of millions of farmers. So this is better forecasting and getting the content for the advisories and potentially going digital in order to get at least digital to the extension officers, if not the farmers. In Senegal, also bringing CIS and CSA together, working with multidisciplinary working groups. So this is the example used in Senegal, where the ANISM, which is the meteorological agency, brings together various partners, farmers, rural radios, to improve forecasting and to get advisories, the kinds of advisories that farmers need. And a very specific example of a single product that we aim for. After 3 years, Icra hopes to show the experience and results in promoting women's entry into advancement in agricultural research and extension. For as we know, there's plenty of equity issues to deal with within the research community itself. Thank you. We really look forward to this project, and I think the really interesting thing goes back to Tembi's phrase, if you want to go far, go together. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bruce, for unpacking this exciting initiative that we are launching today. At this point, I would like us to move on to the next segment of the program, where we have a panel discussion. I'd like to hand over to Simeon to moderate the panel discussion for us.
Okay. Thank you, Tembi. I just want to make sure that we have all the panelists around. Let me get the name of everyone. So I just want to ensure that we have all our panelists around. Is Csa around?
Yes, I am around,
Okay.
Simeon.
Just to, good. I will just, then I will also, Danielle.
Yes, I'm also here. Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay. We have Victor Mugo.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're listening from the globe. I am here.
Okay. All right. And I hope Mandefro is there. There was some, I understand that there were some issues with his connection. Is Mandefro Neguse around? No. So our discussion will be then with Danielle, Csa, and Danielle, Csa, and Victor. Okay, I would like to thank you each for participating in this panel discussion, which is going to be quite interesting. We'll talk about challenges and solutions to accelerate the impact of climate research for Africa. Just to the audience, I want to indicate that all the panelists have their CVs and details in the list. So if you want to know a bit more about each one of them, you can just browse through the flyers and the descriptions of the brief CVs of the participants. But let me, the way we're going to organize this is we have like 2 rounds of questions, and for which we expect the speakers to respond briefly. I would like to start basically with Csa. From your experience, what is the main challenge in relation to promoting women's entry and advancement in agricultural research and extension in Africa?
Thank you, Simeon. And I'm happy the previous presentation by Bruce highlighted some of the solutions to the challenges that I will highlight. This area is surrounded with a number of challenges, but I will stick to 2. The first one has to do with the overall gender equality and women's empowerment policy dynamics in the continent. The design of the policy, the implementation, and the monitoring and evaluation. This is characterized by weak, insufficient, and poor architecture of the policy. And the policy environment, therefore, has a big role in inhibiting a strong framework to guide and promote women's entry and advancement. And also, the policy environment does, to a large extent, fail to promote women's capacities in the research, agricultural research. Therefore, there is an issue of skill gaps, especially for women. Most African countries actually do not have robust STEM policies. And more so, they do not even have STEM policies that promote girls to enroll in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we do know that agricultural research requires solid background in STEM. Therefore, really this becomes a huge challenge. So the policy environment really needs to be gender responsive. The second challenge, and two minutes is inefficient, but it's not enough, but I'll try. The second challenge has to do with the design of the agricultural research. I would like to be corrected, but I doubt that the design is actually gender responsive. and it does not also accommodate women's lived experiences and women's indigenous knowledge. And the way the design is made, half the time, it is not designed to accommodate the time poverty that women suffers. Does it facilitate part-time, to be designed in such a way that probably after hours, or for women to participate on a part-time basis? So really the design of the agricultural research needs to be looked into to ensure that the women's perspectives are taken into account, and also the realities that they have a lot of burdens of household chores where they are restricted to give it their best. So for me, those are the main challenges. Of course, there are many, because really talking about women's challenges in agricultural research and extension in Africa, it's near impossibility. Now, the last one that I want to point out before I hand over to you, Simeon, is the issue of repackaging of information packaging for extension services. Is it packaged in such a way that women access it, and half the time it isn't? Usually there is no gender sensitivity in packaging the information. Therefore, women are missed out in the information provision. And let me reiterate by saying that I have seen that the Icra project has been designed in such a way that issues of access and issues of advancement are going to be looked into. And also, to refer back to what Thembi said, let's be inclusive. You want to go fast, you go alone. You want to go far, bring women, especially young women, girls, into the picture and prepare them for entry and advancement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Csa. Let me briefly remind everyone. Okay, Csa basically is Csa Matashane Marite, I hope I'm having the pronunciation correct, is a gender affairs officer.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Is a gender affairs officer at the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment section in the Gender, Poverty and Social Policy Division in ECA. Prior to joining ECA, she worked as a national coordinator and chief researcher for women and law in Lesotho. My next question will be to Daniel, and briefly, Daniel is the Ghana country manager for Isoko Networks and is responsible for developing innovative ICT tools and e-extension services using mobile phones. So my question to you, Daniel, are digital tools a solution for accelerating the impact of climate research in Africa? And if so, why?
All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for having me on this program. I'll just go straight to the points, and I will say that absolutely it is that digital tools are a major, one of the most important solutions to scale up the impact of climate research across Africa at the lowest cost. Now, you all know that traditional extension has been very, very difficult and expensive to scale to smallholder farmers across Africa. I'm currently the extension officer to farmer ratio is estimated at 1:3,000 farmers, which means that 3,000 farmers can access only one extension officer. Now, at this rate, it is virtually impossible to accelerate the impacts of climate research among farmers who critically need these research findings to plan better and adapt new resilient agricultural technologies. And for me, this is where digital solutions play a vital role and crucial role to bridge the information asymmetry that exists within the agricultural value chain. There have been numerous studies that have been conducted that show the effectiveness of digital tools to connect climate information to the last mile user. These tools may include basic messaging service like SMS, IVR, call centers, but also increasingly mobile apps that are able to customize and localize high-level climate information into a language and format that an ordinary smallholder farmer can utilize, understand, and be able to apply in their day-to-day farming operations. Now, you at ICCRA have seen that digital tools have led to income increase of over 10% among farmer populations, and many of these farmers have adopted this climate information and been able to increase their productivity levels. In fact, in some cases, you've seen that this climate information delivered over mobile channels have led to several other unintended positive impacts, like even how the household should plan on what to eat based on climate information that they receive from our services. Now, to summarize what I've been trying to say, we know that the fourth industrial revolution is marked by massive advances in digital technologies. And this must be leveraged on and be able to scale up climate change impact across Africa, where 70% of the population are engaged in this climate-sensitive sector of agriculture. I mean, if you want to deliver climate information via the traditional service delivery, you can be sure that many more farmers will not have access to this information. Many more farmers cannot afford even to pay for private sector extension delivery programs. But if digital tools, farmers can sit at the comfort of their farm, even at their farms, and receive a simple messaging either via voice or SMS or even through a call center service and be able to access this information. And for us, we think that any program that is really aimed at accelerating the impact of climate change impact needs to adopt and incorporate digital tools for it to be more effective, for it to be more cost effective, efficient, and be able to apply at scale. Thank you very much for that question.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. I'll come to you again in the second round of questions and to ask another one specifically to what you're doing in Ghana. I would like to now go to Victor. I don't know if Mandefro is still is connected or not. If not, I will go to Victor. Victor Mungo is the country coordinator, Climate Smart Agriculture Youth Network in Kenya, and is an innovative and versatile development professional with a refined finesse in the theme areas of agricultural risk management, sustainable finance, climate smart agriculture, youth empowerment through agriculture, as well as communications for development. Moreover, he is a Bolog Adesina Fellow and a 2017 Young African Leaders Initiative Fellow. So my first question to Victor, what are the main challenges that the African youth is facing in relation to participation in research activities for addressing the main impacts of climate change in the agriculture sector? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Simeon, and thank you so much to the speakers who have gone before me. I do not want to sound repetitive, especially from Keso's sentiments on gender issues really that encompass young women and especially women in terms of policy, policy environment, the design of agricultural research, the structures of support around women and especially young people while conducting this research, as well as the packaging of information and the delivery tools for all of this. And so just to set the scene here, although climate change really is a political issue, is an economic issue, is a gender issue, is a development issue, is a global issue, climate change, especially in Africa, is a youth issue. And this is why. So you all know that in most of the African countries where the youth population account for a sizable share of the population, these economies really depend heavily on agriculture, which is also highly predisposed to climate change and climate risks. And so by this fact, climate change really ranks among the most important dynamics that is shaping the success and sustainability of efforts really to create decent employment opportunities for young people in this continent. And also, young people are really vulnerable to climate change. In terms of vulnerability, that is measured in terms of exposure, sensitivity, and adaptive capacity. In all of these dimensions, then rural young people are particularly disadvantaged. And if you go a step further, young women are even more disadvantaged. And so today's youth are not only facing suffering the brunt of climate change and the effects of climate change, but they will also bear the cost of the failure for us to address these risks and the effects throughout their lifetimes. But I do not want to look at young people really as the challenge here. I want to look at young people as the solution. And so there are numerous examples across the continent of young people who are implementing research, who are undertaking action really that is transforming the way we produce, the way we add value, the way we store, the way we consume, the way we sell our food, even in the context of the changing climate. And so if there's a thing also that we've learned about, especially African youth and the global youth, is that the youth are passionate about their futures, they are passionate about climate change, and they are passionate about climate sustainability. And so as we think about accelerating the impacts of CGIAR climate research in Africa, it is also important to think about how we can be able to accelerate and deepen research, especially on young people. What we've seen across the continent is that the young people's contribution towards climate research and also towards and the effects to young people really is obscured by the lack of data. And so the intersectionality of all these factors that encompass youth, including agriculture, climate change, migration, gender, conflicts, all these things are quite important to understand. And with evidence-based, then we can be able to co-create solutions with the youth in the heart. And so I also think that it's important to deepen investments that address and build the capacity of rural youth on climate change. And so these investments really that are targeting young people should need to address the aspect of climate change, but also the investments that target climate action should actively involve the youth. And lastly, I also think that it's important for us to deepen and accelerate partnerships with the youth that leads to meaningful youth engagement. So we cannot think about sustainability and even climate research without thinking about the youth. And we cannot think about scaling climate research without involving the group that has the most and the demographic dominance. And so I think it's really important that we can have the youth in the question. We can have youth meaningfully engaged so that we can be able to scale and accelerate the impact of climate research.
Okay. Thank you very much, Victor, for those clarifying points. Bear with me, I have a second round of questions for each one of you. And I'd like to go back to Csa. So Csa, from your perspective, how can ICRA address the following two challenges? Women are not accessing CSA technologies to the same extent as men. And two, women are less represented in agricultural research and advance at a lower rate than men. How would you give us your perspective on that? Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Simeon. That is very, very true that women are not accessing CSA information and technologies to the same extent as men. And really, for us to move forward and to provide solutions, we do need to look closely and in depth at the normative understanding of gender relations. We need to really pay attention to the gender relations and gender inequalities to open our eyes and really open our eyes widely to the inequalities that are inherent in this area. As I said earlier, and as it has already been alluded to, CSA technologies are not necessarily designed to be empowering. By default, probably not, because anti-poverty is the big overburdened with household chores that are never acknowledging information to the same level. If boys and girls are not carrying out the same chores, household chores, therefore the boys or the young men are more likely to be getting more advantaged, while women at their contribution to agriculture, they are more likely to be carrying out activities that are labor intensive. And this in itself also limits them to access the technologies and information that was in constraints, because women are more likely to have limited access to credit and other resources, and as their male counterparts. There are a number of reasons why countries in Africa, it has to do with their minority legal status. And also they do for men. Really, I'm not so sure whether it is deliberate, but unfortunately, this is the reality in the continent, that the experiences of power. But going back also to the whole policies that are meant to actually push women and girls, this continent has majority, takes into account the lived experiences of women and take into account the silent killers that we usually are not opening our eyes to. We assume we are starting from the same grounds. The policy environment does not have the level are obvious, but a lot of them are hidden. But the one that I want to Africa as normal for women and girls to be carrying the burden of the household chores and also undertaking agricultural tasks that are labor intensive. And that actually does lead to other challenges that may be difficult to deal with. So let us strengthen the policy environment, not only to design good policies. Let's be sure that there is implementation of policies, and also there are incentives for implementation of policies, and to regularly monitor and evaluate whether those policies
Did we lose Queso? Okay, until she comes back, I would like to go to Daniel. Daniel, I asked you a question earlier about whether or not digital tools were a solution for accelerating the impact of climate change in Africa. And of course, you responded without hesitation, yes, with good examples. Now, I'd like to ask you, from your experience working in AICCRA, what are the main challenges from your perspective, what are the main challenges to accelerate the impact of climate research in Africa? Did I lose it?
Yes, I lost you a bit. I'm not sure if you can recap the question once again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry, Daniel. I'm sorry. Okay, I thought the problem was on my side, so I began to worry. I was just saying that I asked you a question earlier, where if the digital tools were a solution for accelerating the impact of climate research in Africa, and you responded without hesitation, yes, and you explained why with some examples. So I want to come back to you and ask, from your experience, working in Lesotho, what do you see as the main challenges to accelerate the impact of climate research in Africa?
All right, thank you very much. I hope we have a stable connection this time. So essentially, from what you've seen, the main challenge has been difficulty in getting the results from the climate research to the people who really need it most at the community level. I mean, many research programs are designed without building into the program design mechanism to disseminate the research findings, especially to farmer groups who need this information very, very importantly. Also, some of this research are done without the adequate institutional and local partnerships, as well as private engagement that are critically required to ensure sustainable downstream dissemination and utilization of climate research findings. Now, the end result has been that we have a lot of information out there available at the international research article, but then when you go to the community level, people don't know what has been done. People don't, very little actually exists. And so you go to we can just do a simple Google search, and then you find several interesting articles and research findings on climate-related information. But at the community level, where this information needs to be utilized and adopted, very little really do exist in this area. Now, this information asymmetry between communities, farmer groups, and international climate research must be bridged as a matter of urgency to accelerate the impact of climate research in Africa. The second challenge has also been the willingness and ability to pay for this climate information by all actors in the agricultural value chain. Now, everybody wants information, but nobody really wants to pay for information. Even those of us on this program now, if you go to any website looking for any information and you're asked to pay, let's say $5, you're more likely going to switch to a place where you can get it for free. Now, you can't expect anything more than this from a smaller farmer who already struggles to buy inputs for their farming activities. So there are going to be some mechanisms in place that allow these people to be able to have access to this information without having necessarily to kind of spend a lot of money or a lot of resources to access this information. Now, the other challenge that we have seen is also that most of these publicly funded programs do not have inbuilt sustainability models. And so the program ends when the donor funding also ends. And so at the same time, we have a lot of interesting articles that are out there people can actually use. But because the program funding this research have ended, nobody is there actually to kind of take on this research findings and take them to the community level. And I will think that these issues must be addressed if you really want to scale up climate impact research in the African rural communities. We believe that public-private partnerships really need to be a key part in any program design in such a way that even when the main program funding ends, there's be somebody who is there to continue to provide this service to these rural people who need information very, very urgently. So these are the things that you've seen that's really a hampering the acceleration of climate change impact research in Africa. Well, let me try to recap. One is institutional partnership, local partnerships, information asymmetry that exists within the agricultural value chain, but then also lack of sustainability models that have been built into these programs, and then people's willingness and ability to pay for these information programs that have been designed essentially to help them to adopt to climate change impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. We are reaching the end of this particular session. Before going to the overall Q&A from the audience, because we do have several questions coming from the meeting participants. So my last question to you is to Victor. How can ICCRA work better with youth groups in Africa to accelerate the impacts of climate research?
Thank you so much, Simeon, for that. And to do this, let me just exemplify what just a small collaboration with a CGIAR Center really has been able to do so far. So as the Climate Smart Agriculture Youth Network, we are a network of young people who are engaged in climate smart agriculture. Our work really is to help young people transition into farming, but not just into farming or on-farm production, into climate smart agriculture. And so through our partnership with the Alliance of Biodiversity International and CIAT, in which we were incorporated together with them a few years ago, we started seeing some research really that could help young people to transform what they were doing and transform their livelihoods. So the first thing that we saw was the climate smart villages that have been piloted by CGIAR. And so what we did was to customize that solution to a young people solution. And so we created CSA Excellence Centers, which are demonstration farms that are run by young people that are then through this, then it's an opportunity for young people to come and learn more about climate smart agriculture, seeing other young people that are implementing climate smart agriculture and being very good at it, and seeing the improvements in productivity as well as in resilience. Then other young people can be able to adopt this. And we also see that the climate smart excellence centers have been an opportunity for even young people to get an extra income by training other rural smallholder farmers in that. We also saw the opportunity for that was there by the high ion beans that was released by the Pan-African Bean Research Alliance. And so we took this and we started piloting high ion bean by growing them. And we've done quite a number of pilots, and we've seen this really being taken up by young people, but also fetching very good prices for young people because they are quite a niche product, but as well they really help to improve the nutrition for especially young women and ladies who are in the adolescent age. And so we've seen really partnerships with the Alliance for the Alliance of Biodiversity International and CGIAR, together with the Climate Smart Agriculture Youth Network, really yielding results. And what I think is that this is not just a solitary case. This is not, we are not just a program in isolation. That partnerships with young people really can be able to help to scale climate research in Africa. And to see how this can even be better improved, I would look at the changing face of youth engagement. And so this notes that youth representation is only the first stage. The next thing is active involvement and meaningful participation. That the youth do not just want to sit at the table, they want to share also the share of the cake that is being shared on the table. That the youth do not just have ideas, they have investable propositions. They are concretizing these ideas into investable propositions. And the youth do not want to be lumped up in categorical jargon. So sometimes, and this has happened, that the youth are mentioned, women, youth, and people with disabilities. And this then limits the impact and also the evidence for which young people are transforming food systems, but also are engaging in climate research. And so I tend to think that ICCRA has already started doing this by meaningfully participating young people, having representatives of young people in some of their clusters. And I think this is the kind of a new change, the changing face of youth engagement that is required really to scale climate research in Africa.
Thank you, Victor. Let me, now it's the time I want to really open the discussion to the broader audience. I've received several questions I would like to ask the panelists, but also the previous speakers like Bruce as well, and possibly also Tembi, by a question for you. So one question that I have from the audience is, ICCRA will promote the use of digital platforms and the use of information by farmers. But how would ICCRA address digital literacy and inclusion? This question, I would like to address it to Daniel and Bruce. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Simon, for the question. So essentially, literacy, you all know, is very high in Africa, but digital literacy is actually much higher across Africa. What we have done to kind of bypass the issue of literacy is that instead of providing some of the digital information via SMS-based services, we have gone to the extent of doing them via voice messaging in local languages. So for instance, in Ghana, you're covering 15 local languages where farmers are able to get access to this information in their own local languages. I mean, this issue kind of clearly solved the issue of the illiteracy among farmers in Africa. And this is so you intend to actually continue this engagement in the Icraft project also, where all the information will be generated by the various partners will be digitized, customized, and localized in a format that the farmers can read and understand. And they'll be given to them via voice messaging platforms. This way, there's no issue of literally, I'm able to read, I'm not able to read. You get the message or the content in your own local language. There will be a call center support where you can.
I think we have a digital
much more information and much more clarification what you are receiving in between the service and the technology that is going out to these people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. We have a bit of challenges on the hearing you, because sometimes you get frozen. But all this to go to show that would sustain investment on infrastructure for the internet system. All what we're talking about, the climate information system may not go far. So in terms of policies and investment, I think it will be good. That's what we talk about, repurposing some of these expenditures to focus on public goods such as development of the internet system, the infrastructure needed to support exactly what we are talking about. So let me go to another. Bruce, do you like to add?
I don't think I have much to add. So, I mean, Daniel did a great job of answering the question. I just perhaps following up on what Victor was saying is actually in literacy, we do expect to work with a lot of young people as well, because often the literacy with the younger generation is better than with the older generation. So that'll be another link with the youth work that we imagine.
Okay. Thanks. There are a few questions for you also, Bruce, sometime. So I'll call on you again, even in the current one, to you and Csa. So both Csa and Bruce discussed how access and equity continue to be an issue. How would Icra address these issues? Are there examples? Csa, you would like to come in, and then Bruce will come in?
It's easier to pose challenges than to come up with the solutions. For me, I think the first step is to address the skills gap and the knowledge gaps and capacity. I think building capacity is very important, but while you bring in the issue of building capacity, be sensitive to the realities that affect the people who are targeted, and ensure that your programs are designed in such a way that they target women. When you want women to access and also advance, ensure that you design the programs in such a way that you attract them, and be sensitive to the challenges that we have posed, that they do not have the time. I hope Icra will consider introducing flexi time when you are designing your programs. Ensure that you target women at times that they will be able to give you their all. So in other words, if you want them to really enter the space, provide the skills and address the capacity gaps. But while doing so, do so mindful of the uneven terrain that they are operating from, that they may not have the power, the decision making, and you may have to negotiate their participation in the research and in the climate smart agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have many more questions, but due to the time, I would like to really stop here so that we can move to the next segment of the event. But let me seize this opportunity to really thank all the panelists, Csa, Daniel, and Victor, for really answering difficult questions, but also providing the kind of answers that people are looking for. So the other questions have been recorded, and some of them may be sent to you, and feel free to respond to them as you can, either in writing or whatever. But I want to really thank you for being available and to discuss this important topic. Let me stop here and hand over to the MC for the next segment of the event. Tembi.
Thank you, Simeon, and thank you to the panelists for highlighting the issues that indeed Icra is going to be addressing. At this point, we'll now move on to the signing ceremony. Africa Icra grant between the CGIAR, represented by Juan Lucas Restrepo, who is the Director General of the Alliance of Biodiversity and CGIAR, and the World Bank, represented by Simeon, Ellie, who is the Regional Director for Sustainable Development for Africa. In view of the COVID-19 pandemic, the CGIAR and the World Bank have agreed to hold the signing ceremony virtually, where the agreement will be signed simultaneously in 2 locations, in Rome, Italy, and in Washington, DC, USA. I would like to invite Juan Lucas Restrepo to deliver a short remark for this occasion.
Thanks again, Tembi. This is very exciting. I also, Simeon, enjoyed listening to the panelists on how it's not climate smart solutions, but gender, youth, participatory work, capacity development to make sure we have the full recipe and are absolutely successful. This initiative marks an important milestone in CGIAR and its partners' efforts to fight climate change and build nature-positive food, land, and water systems. This effort is at the core of our new One CGIAR Research and Innovation Strategy, which will drive our work towards 2030. While the strategy includes a specific impact area around climate adaptation and mitigation, this project will also contribute to the rest of the areas, especially nutrition, health, and food security, as well as poverty reduction, livelihoods, and jobs. Through this project, we hope to equip farmers and livestock keepers with the tools needed to better anticipate climate-related events and take preventive actions to preserve their livelihoods. We hope that by providing farmers with better access to climate advisories and information about effective response measures, we will help communities better safeguard their livelihoods and the environment. We're thankful to the World Bank for its contribution to this project, and we look forward to working together for the success of this initiative. Over to you, Tembi.
Thank you, Juan Lucas, for those remarks. And now I'd like to invite Simon Ellie to give us his remarks.
Thank you, Tembi. For me, it's a real pleasure to represent the World Bank Regional IDA program, and also the Regional Integration Director, Debbie Wetzel, during the signing ceremony for the Accelerating Impact of CGIAR Climate Research in Africa project. So this project is a significant initiative that will help leverage cutting-edge CGIAR-led science to catalyze the uptake of climate-smart agriculture and promote food security in the context of climate change in Africa. The countries that finance the IDA, the International Development Association, and the governors who represent them are pleased to see this innovative use of IDA resources in support of CGIAR and its partners throughout Africa. Public investments in science and innovation will be invaluable in helping governments throughout the region deliver solutions to help Africa's farmers. It will help agriculturalists address the enormous challenges that they face and enable the emergence of the more productive, resilient, and sustainable food system to which we all aspire. Strong partnerships between CGIAR, regional and national African organizations, universities on the continent and beyond, the NGOs, private firms, and the international development agencies will be key to transform Africa's food systems and making them productive, resilient, and sustainable. The World Bank is committed to continuing its long-standing support for this important agenda, as reflected in the IDA grant agreement we are signing today. Over to you.
Thank you, Simeon, for those remarks. At this point, I would like to invite both Juan Lucas and Simeon to simultaneously sign the agreement in order to formalize the ICRA project.
Okay.
Thank you. We shall now proceed with a virtual photo shoot to commence the ceremony, commemorate the ceremony. Thank you. If you could both just hold up the signed documents for the photo.
From the bottom, okay, all right. You see it well?
Yeah. Looking good. Thank you, Juan Lucas and Simeon Ellie. And now we'll display a short video to conclude the ceremony. And for our last speaker, I would like to invite Claudia Sadov, who is the Executive Management Team Convener and Managing Director, Research, Delivery and Impact at the CGIAR, to deliver the closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Tembi. It's been really exciting to hear so many voices, perspectives, and ideas here today on how we can deliver a climate-smart future for Africa, one that's driven by science and innovation and anchored in agricultural systems. The African continent is seeing the fastest population growth of any region in the world. It's also on the front lines of climate change, warming faster than all other regions. These interrelated challenges of climate change and food security are most urgent in Africa. Support for climate-smart food systems must be an integral part of our efforts to bolster African livelihoods as we build back from the COVID-19 pandemic. So new initiatives like ICCRA are timely and prescient. ICCRA will significantly enhance access to climate information services and climate smart agricultural technologies in African countries that receive IDA support from the International Development Association of the World Bank. For 50 years, CGIAR and our partners have delivered critical science and innovation that has helped feed the world and combat inequality. And as the Managing Director for Research and Impact at CGIAR, I'm absolutely delighted to be part of today's launch. ICCRA will accelerate the impact of this climate research in Africa for Africa. Initiatives like ICCRA are foundational to the CGIAR research and innovation strategy to 2030, which upgrades our global research partnerships for an ever-changing world and demands nothing less than a transformation of global food systems in a climate crisis. As we heard from Bruce Campbell, ICCRA will generate new knowledge and tools designed to address critical gaps in the design and provision of much needed agricultural climate services. It will enable climate-informed investment planning and help design policies that encourage the uptake of climate-smart agricultural practices at the regional, sub-regional, and national levels in Africa. ICCRA's clear strategic and operational principles will scale its impact, both through the clear definition of the problems that we seek to address and a theory of change that runs all the way from research investment through to development outcomes. I'm also thrilled that ICCRA will put end users, farmers and consumers, women, men, and youth at the heart of the process to generate new ideas. ICCRA will connect innovations to their demands as a catalyst for sustainable growth. Clearly, strong partnerships are key to ICCRA's success. ICCRA builds on a decade of learning in the CGIAR research program on climate change, agriculture, and food security, that are known as CCAFs, where innovations, policy, success were all founded upon collaborations with thousands of stakeholders. Because in delivering transformation, we have seen that partnerships can be just as important as science. And when it comes to funding transformation, simply setting a common agenda between governments, the private sector, as we've heard here today, farmers organizations, multilateral organizations, and investors are all part of the change makers in food systems. This common agenda is what's needed. And so ICCRA will help to set a common agenda. And while ICCRA will develop effective multi-stakeholder processes, it will do so while retaining a sharp focus on evidence and results, which will frankly save our partners and stakeholders from being drowned in the processes themselves. This sharp focus on evidence and results will also help CGIAR lead from behind where that is needed, opening up opportunities to sometimes more junior partners and to new allies who can leverage the impact of research and innovation. So in closing, I really would like to take this opportunity on behalf of the CGIAR executive management team to say to our partners in Senegal, Ghana, Mali, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Zambia, the 6 countries where ICCRA will initially focus its activities, that we are very excited to be working with you on this important and exciting new initiative. And I'd also like to thank our partners and colleagues at the World Bank for continuing to invest in CGIAR and providing the support that makes initiatives like ICCRA a reality. The relationship between CGIAR and the World Bank is one that goes back to the very foundations of CGIAR 50 years ago, when the Pearson Report, commissioned by then President McNamara, called for an elevated global effort for development assistance. As today's event testifies, our partnership remains as vibrant, as relevant, and as durable as ever. CGIAR's 50th anniversary celebrations this year are a reminder of the exciting innovations and tremendous achievements CGIAR has delivered, like those we have seen with CCAFs and those we are working toward with ICCRA. These have been delivered in partnership with food system champions like many of you in today's virtual event. In CGIAR's 50th year, however, we are firmly focused forward. We are in the process of transforming ourselves into one CGIAR, which will be more fully integrated and, we believe, more agile, more impactful, and more influential with our science. Icra and the other One CGIAR initiatives and platforms now being developed to deliver on our new 2030 research and innovation strategy make a very promising start to the next 50 years. Let us not delay in delivering on the promise of research and innovation to improve the lives and livelihoods of the poor. And thank you all. Stay well and take care. Thank you, Tembi.
Thank you, Claudia, for the closing remarks and for the charge that you have given Icra and all the partners that will be involved. At this point, we have come to the end of our program for today. I'd like to thank all the speakers and all the partners that have been involved in this event for the time and also for sharing the knowledge as well. I'd also like to thank all our participants that have joined using all the different media platforms that we had streaming this meeting. I would also like to invite you to join us again tomorrow and on Wednesday and on Thursday. As I mentioned, this is a 4-day event. Tomorrow we'll be getting into the dialogues, discussing some of the key issues that the Icra program will be looking at. From me, thank you very much and have a good day further. Thank you, goodbye.